Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sessions Café, brought to you by Entrigue magazine. I'm your host, Keri Singleton, and today we welcome Terron Tidwell to the show. How are you, my guy?
I'm doing extremely well.
Good,
besides the cold weather.
Good. Yeah, the cold weather is definitely not pleasant, but we're here, right?
Exactly.
We're here.
New year.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to Sessions Café.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you for coming. Wealth management. You're a wealth management professional.
Correct.
And that's a conversation that is going to have a lot of branches and a lot of leaves. No pun intended. Leaves money.
Yeah.
But how did you get into wealth management and as a professional anyway?
So the way that I actually came about, I guess, coming to Wall Street was I was actually in the entertainment field. I was actually at the music industry.
Okay.
The music industry. And as we know, the music industry started crashing with LimeWire, downloading and all that stuff. And so it's basically time just to pivot because we were actually going through, I think we went through maybe like 3-4 different mergers with Jive Records and some of the other companies merging together. So, you know, when mergers happen, people get cut.
Exactly.
Transitions was taking place. So, the writing was on the wall. So it's like, you know what, I need to go somewhere else. One of my buddies that I knew of, he was already working on Wall Street and everything. And I was going back to school. And so I was, inquiring because I've always been an entrepreneur. I was always been a go-getter. So I was like, how do I get involved in what you're doing?
Right.
Told me the process and everything. Went through their training program. Voila, 17 years later, I'm here. Came in at the worst possible time.
Really?
Yeah, I came in at 2007, 2008 during the crash.
Okay.
But I think it was actually the best time for me or those who were coming into the business because you actually got to see everything at the worst possible moment.
Okay, that makes sense.
So you're learning on the fly. You're seeing how professionals are reacting or handling a crisis.
Right.
And that's when you really learn.
Right.
So that's how I actually came about, coming into the business and everything.
And so currently you're the vice president of wealth management at Hudson Point Capital.
Hudson Point, senior vice president.
Give me a little senior vice president. Yeah. Give me a little bit of a background on that position and how you got to that role.
Yeah. So basically I got to that role by doing the job of bringing on board new clients, managing money for those clients, building out their portfolios, taking care of their needs, whether it's dealing with, planning for a goal of theirs, whether it's helping, something with the estate planning aspect, or doing different investment banking deals, because that's something that we do as well, So those are, different areas that we're helping clients in. And so this is, how you get there and you continuously build your book of business and your clientele and look to expand your branches or your bank's footprint.
Let's have a more textured conversation.
Sure.
What are some of the mistakes that pro athletes and entertainers in particular make with their newfound wealth? And I'm sure there are plenty.
I would say right off the bat, it's really understanding and dealing with budgeting.
Right.
Because, especially from the standpoint of a lot of minorities, you're coming from not having money to all of a sudden having more money than you know what to do with.
Right.
And to you've hit the jackpot, and technically you have hit the jackpot coming into that, if you're an athlete or if you're an artist. So right off the bat, that's the biggest thing, because now it's like I can buy the world.
Right. Or so they think.
What you think.
Right.
But at least the everyday things that before.
Their world.
Exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And plus some.
Yeah. So
I would say right off the bat, it's really just understanding, okay, I have this money coming in. Okay, what am I doing with it now? Because it's like, well, every 2 weeks, I'm getting $100 and some $1,000.
Right.
So, so I would say right off the bat, though, it's really just kind of understanding or not managing their cash flow.
This might be an unfair question to ask, but since we're on the topic, would you say, from a personal perspective, that pro athletes and entertainers, for example, tend to be the most challenging to work with in terms of getting their money structure tight?
Probably to a certain degree, because you have to understand, for athletes or artists or, you know, those in that space, they're coming in at a young age.
That's another thing, right?
So forget that they're an athlete, right? 19-year-old kid, any kid, coming into that type of money is going to have issues.
Correct.
Right? Because you have a lot of adults who sit back and say, well, I would do this, or they should be doing that. And, you know, but you're speaking from a perspective of, because you've had time to make those mistakes.
Yeah, a place of maturity.
Yeah, exactly. So for them, it's, you know, it's like, well, what experience did they have beforehand?
Right.
Because most of them are in school, when you know, so they haven't had work experience besides just working to make the team.
Right, exactly.
So their experience in the real world is going to be totally different than the average person that's working a job. They messed up a paycheck, then they learn how to, okay, now I need to budget and do different things or whatever. So it's going to be, you know, totally different. But yeah, I mean, working with, you know, athletes or artists is going to be totally different than me working with an executive.
Correct. Yeah. And not just because of what they do, but because of their youth, generally speaking. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. How do you assist in facilitating healthy wealth decision-making habits, though?
So basically, you're talking about a system, implementing a system. Every business that's successful has a system in place. You know, it's funny. I was just having a conversation with some young adults the other day about this, and I asked them. I said, "Well, we all have systems, you know." And he's like, "Oh, well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, tell me. When you wake up in the morning, what do you do?" Right. I brush my teeth. I wash my face. You know, I shower, this and that. Go downstairs and eat breakfast. I said, "You do that every morning?" I said, well, that's a system.
Yeah, we're all creatures of habit. Yeah.
So it's really about implementing the correct things into that system.
Correct.
Little things.
Right.
You know, so if you can understand, okay, well, I'm getting paid X, Y, and Z. I'm going to put X, Y, and Z amount away every paycheck. So now you're implementing that into a system. So the thing is just to make sure you put a system in place so that now it's second nature. You don't have to think about it.
Right. Now, you're not new to being a successful entrepreneur at all. You know, prior to your arrival on the Wall Street scene, you built a pretty successful 7-figure transportation company. Now, what kind of company was that specifically?
So that was a taxi and a limousine business.
Okay.
So that was, you know, people don't understand. There's always going to be a need for transportation.
Exactly.
I mean, it's just that now you have Ubers and Lyfts.
Right. Right.
But back then, you know, you had different transportation companies around, and it's, you know, it's a great business. It's always going to do well during, you know, ups or downs, because why? People always have to travel. Always. You know, things have to be transported. Seniors have to move about. So it's a. And
how did you initiate that business? Like, what made you decide, you know what, I'm gonna put my money into building a transportation business?
Actually, the city I was living in, we only had like one transportation business, so there wasn't really any competition. Right. And I used to utilize them a lot as well. So so utilizing them and starting understanding, well, there's only one that's here, and we need another one. Right. Why not?
You fill the void.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And it did well for you.
Yeah.
So then why the change?
Well, actually, it was time for a pivot for me. It was an entryway. Because I've always been an entrepreneur, you know, since I was a kid, since I was a teenager. I was always that kid that had, you know, shoveling everybody's snow. Okay. You know, summertimes cutting their grass. Oh, you know, so I had those clients on rotation all the time, and so being in that frame of mind was always, okay, well, what's the next thing? I've made money with this. It's a stepping stone, so to speak. And I'd probably say I may have gotten a little bit tired of it.
Right. I understand that. Yeah.
I mean, it's a great business, but it just wasn't my life goal or something.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. I want you to describe the spectrum Terron, of your clientele?
Okay. So besides working with athletes or, those in entertainment, I still work with everyday business owners, more so executives.
Okay.
I try to stick more so with the executives that are in the sports and entertainment arena, just because it makes it that much more easier to refer people to transact other business, because now everyone kind of knows, or there's some type of similar needs or different things. So if I have, a sports executive over here and he's doing something, then you have someone over here who needs something, it's always easy to connect them.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I still have, mom and pop business owners.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Not too many. That's not where I'm trying to go to too much, but
Yeah.
I'll help out. If I get a referral, I'll probably take on and help out. If they're not really the type of client I'm looking for, but yeah, you still try to help when you can. When you can.
All right, and how important? And this might be a rhetorical question or a ridiculous question, I should say, for you, but it's important to my viewers to understand how important is, in your opinion, good, solid financial management?
It's your whole foundation. I mean, when you think about it, just about everything that we do comes or has some sort of effect on our finances.
Right.
The careers that we pick, where we live, choices,
right?
How we shop,
right?
Choices,
exactly.
So finance plays a part in just about everything that you can think about. Without finances, there's no romance,
right? Exactly.
So I mean, it's like
even sometimes with finance, there's no romance. That's another story. When do you feel that a person should seek a financial advisor? Like, because I remember when you were on my radio show a couple of years ago, that was a point that I forgot to ask you. When actually is a good time? When should a person, actually go ahead and seek out a financial advisor?
So everyone has different, I guess, answers on that. I would say, if you're looking to get yourself on a financial path, you're looking to put some solid foundations around or guiding lights, that's the best time to start. Everyone may not work with you, but they can give you pointers, or they may point you to an advisor that may work in that area or that sector or whatever the case may be.
Gotcha.
But it's never like, oh, well, you need to have $1 million before you talk to an advisor, because there's guys at different levels that are still advisors, but they just may be in different areas or different spaces to work with a client or a potential client.
And where do you see yourself in the future in terms of your career today? Where would you like to go?
So I'm working more now on some media stuff. It's funny because in finance we talk about diversifying.
Yes.
And especially in this economy, what's going on, you want to do things that are not just facilitated or based off of one thing. So
absolutely. You gotta be versatile.
Yeah, exactly. So my thing is that I'm, doing other things outside of just, the financial aspect. So I'm building other aspects of business that I'm working on and looking to expand as well.
Now, I know that you're very good at what you do, and I'm not just saying this because you're in front of me. How can people get in touch with you if they want to utilize your services or learn more about the importance of having a good, solid financial circle?
Yeah, sure. There's, several platforms. You can reach out to me, contact me on LinkedIn. I'm on there, Terron Tidwell. I'm on Facebook, Terron Tidwell. IG, underscore Tidwell.
Mo Money.
Mo,
How
Mo Money,
fitting.
Mo Money.
Right.
That's actually my nickname too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
Yeah. I just jumped on TikTok just for the hell of it, just the other day.
Well,
You
well,
know,
just
but
the other, yeah,
just to be funny.
Yeah.
But I've never even been on TikTok before.
Yeah,
But
me neither.
so I have a thing up on there as well. So yeah, I'm on just about all
but
the
you're
platforms.
easily accessible.
Yeah, very accessible. You can email me ttidwell@hudsonpoint.com.
Okay, that's important. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, brother, and thank you for extending yourself to my audience and pointing out the importances, because you have physical health, which is vital. You have mental health, which is vital.
All of them.
But I think having a healthy management of one's wealth, or just their budgeting practices is super important. I thank you for bringing your expertise to the show. I appreciate you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
I'm thankful for being welcome on here with open
I'll
arms.
be all the time, brother. You got to come back in and give us some more pointers on how we can hold on to our money, or at least spend it wisely. Yeah.
Yes.
We'll be back with more Sessions Cafe. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Sessions Cafe, brought to you by Entrigue magazine. I'm your host, Keri D. Singleton, and today I have the honor of welcoming my brother, Damon Jones, to the show. How are you, boss?
How you doing, brother? How's things?
Spiffy jacket.
Hey, man.
Yeah, shout out to Crocodile.
Yes, sir.
He's
yes,
good
sir.
people.
He's the best, man.
He's good people,
good
brother.
Friend.
You're an author, an activist, a speaker, and a publisher. That's just a couple of your hats, man.
Exactly.
That's just a couple of the hats that you wear. I'm honored to know you, and it's definitely a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
Very quickly, because I want to jump right into it. We got a lot to talk about, brother. Mental health awareness. That, for whatever reason, today seems like a big, big ticketed topic. I think it should have always been.
Absolutely.
Since the days when the homes for people with mental disabilities were across the country decimated. But only now that there's been a plethora of crimes committed by people who are suffering from mental illness across the country, it seems like only now is that important to our society. Why do you think that is?
Well, specifically in New York, when they changed the bail laws, because a lot of times you had a lot of sick people on the street, and they would do minor crimes to go into jail so they could get their medication.
Okay.
So they wasn't able to afford the medication out in the street.
Oh, so the crimes were done intentionally?
Absolutely. A lot of crimes, even in the wintertime, homeless people will do crimes intentionally
to get
housing.
Right.
Right. So we messed up the ecosystem with the bail law.
Oh, wow. I didn't think about that.
We messed it up. So now you see more people out in the street that's having mental crisis. And unfortunately, many police departments are not trained to deal with mental crisis.
Right.
So you have certain situations like the Kenneth Chamberlain shooting. You have different shootings of mentally ill people because cops are basically not trained to deal with mental health de-escalation.
Correct. Wow.
So that's why the conversation is happening more, because there were laws that messed up the actual ecosystem, the original ecosystem in dealing with mental health after they closed down all the mental health facilities.
Right. Wow. Now you talk about so many different things. It's going to be like jumping around.
Right.
The next thing I want to talk to you about is I know you were on my radio show several times over the course of that show's lifetime, and you talked extensively about dietary choices and lifestyles.
Right.
Now, despite the fact that I love your wife's cupcakes,
Yes.
you definitely are no joke when it comes to your health.
Right.
You've written books. I have one or two, not just about making different life choices in terms of your diet, but in terms of your health.
Right.
and how that correlates to your diet.
Yes.
So let's talk about that.
Well, quick story. I was a caregiver to my mother for a lot of years, and then I noticed that I was on the same medications that she was.
Wow.
And when I discussed it with the doctor, the first thing they said, "Oh, it's genetics, it's your DNA.
Right.
You have high blood pressure, you have type 2 diabetes because your mother has high blood pressure, type 2 diabetes." But I said, "Wait a minute, doc, I'm adopted.
Wow.
So
wow.
So how is it genetics if I'm adopted?" And he got quiet. But what it is the food that we eat. We ate the same food. So we're going to have the same diseases. We're going to end up with the same chronic illnesses. So a lot of it is not your DNA, it's the dinner.
Right.
So if we want to break the cycle, we change how we eat, we change our mindset in a relationship to food, and proper exercising.
That is so deep, brother. Doc just wanted to assume that it was genetics.
Right.
Let's discuss activism in 2025.
Mm-hmm.
What does that even mean to you?
It's going to be hard for activists that actually serve the people because we're caught up in a social media age.
Yeah.
Now you have social media activists,
Right.
that really don't do the work. They just do it for likes.
Exactly.
and do it for social media. So I think it's going to be hard for those that are out on the ground, and actually doing the work, helping the people, to really get the recognition, or even get the work done, because sometimes they're overshadowed by those social media activists that are just doing it to be seen and not doing it for real change or real policy change.
Damon, how do you feel social media has impacted our society? You can take a deep breath before you answer
brother,
that
because
one.
it's a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
If we use social media as a business tool, it can help our society in creating a whole generation of entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also being used to dumb down our people, and give us a false sense of reality.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a double-edged sword, and we call it a smartphone,
Yeah.
but is it actually making us smart?
No.
Or are we using it with the mindset to better our lives?
Right.
A lot of times people don't do it,
Right.
but we need to just try to change our mindset towards social media. Especially with young black girls and their bodies and
Right.
and wanting to look like the Kardashians or
Right.
whatever that's out there in the time, and
Right.
they don't. And then you have females trying to change who God made them to be.
Exactly.
Because they're I have a granddaughter. She's overweight, and we work with her a lot of times, to uplift her spirit about herself because of what she sees on social media.
Right.
And it also affects older women too.
Of course it does.
Just not and guys too. You have a little something around the middle, but you see the algorithm always push these dudes with six packs and
Right.
and all that. So we really have to try to detox ourselves once a week from social media. We shouldn't always wake up in the morning and reach for the phone. We
Right.
should meditate, pray, get our thoughts together before we start putting that stuff in our system. Because our diet too is what we eat, what we see, and what we hear.
Right. Right. And then we're talking about consumption. I want to just touch on one more point, Damon. Addiction. Do you feel that the globe, especially in the United States, has a social media addiction?
Absolutely.
And what are your thoughts on that?
Absolutely. We have to recognize it. Right now, people, you have people, a lot of people making a lot of money off of social media. We just got TikTok back where it's not supposed to be here.
Right.
You know,
right.
why is that?
Right.
You know,
Right.
because it's feeding an addiction
Right.
to people. So, I think we have to be diligent enough to know that there's days that we just have to shut the phone off.
Yeah,
I tell my
absolutely.
wife that too. I said, look, just let's try to shut the phone off
Right.
today.
Yeah.
She can't,
Right.
right?
Right.
but it just shows the addiction that we
Yeah.
have.
Let's talk about your books.
Yes.
You're an author. You've authored books with varied topics.
Yes.
Let's talk about some of those books.
I authored books on health and wellness through my experience in taking care of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process of, I've known that changing my diet and focusing on my well-being, brought me to a more spiritual place.
Elaborate on that if you could.
Because what you eat changes the energy in your body. It makes, it's a connection. We haven't learned that the food that we put in our body, especially when we put live food, I'm talking about fruits and vegetables, right? That's a spiritual connection. I don't think we made the understanding that how spiritual food is
Right.
when it's connected to our faith. Because why are the most unhealthiest black men are the ones that attend church regularly?
Interesting.
God did not give us life to make us sick,
Correct.
right? We were supposed to have life in abundance,
Right.
but we're not following God's diet.
Always a great conversation when I talk to you. I'm going to flip on to another component of your life. 33 years in law enforcement.
Yes.
Blacks in Law Enforcement of America. From 2006 to 2010, you was the Northeast Regional President of the National Black Police Association. Let's discuss 2 points. Right. Let's discuss one, the complex relationship between, collectively, between black and white officers. Because in talking to you and getting to know you in the past, I never even realized that there's a whole division
Yes.
between black men in blue and white men in blue, and then brown men in blue, and et cetera. I never really thought about that. So I want you to talk to me about that before we go to the next point, which of course is the decision between black folks and law enforcement.
Right.
Well, yeah.
Well, bigotry and racism exists, man. Just like it exists in society, right? It exists in law enforcement. Whether we want, you have some people will say there's no racism in law enforcement. That's a complete lie.
Right.
So the problem is we don't want to recognize it. We don't want to admit that it's there, and we don't want to put the policies in place or put the mechanisms in place that the police department that serves the community serves the community.
Right.
And when you see signs of an officer that treats people different because of their color, and the signs are there.
Right.
You don't correct it. A lot of times when you're dealing, especially with police brutality, when you see a case, a lot of times that officer had a lot of history and write-ups before that actual incident
Absolutely.
Occurred.
Right.
That he might have took somebody's life.
Right.
Or did something horribly wrong.
Right.
That they just didn't look over. And let's not. One thing we have to, just because the person is black in management, does not mean that they're going to look at situations from a conscious black level. Because I mentioned this with the issue with Mount Vernon in their recent DOJ report, that a lot of black officers, we don't attend the National Black Police Association. We don't go to the National Association of Blacks in Criminal Justice or come to Blacks in Law Enforcement of America, because a lot of young officers allow their white counterparts to say, you don't want to deal with those organizations because they're racist. Or you don't go to the conferences to learn how to police black communities from a conscious perspective that's gonna deal with it from respect. You will go to these white organizations on how to police black people, and then we wonder why we have these type of incidents in our communities, especially in cities that's majority black. Right. Why would we think that Atlanta has police brutality?
Detroit.
Right.
Yeah, you would think.
Because they're trained by institutions that really never saw us as human beings anyway. You know? They will go to the Chiefs Association and all these other organizations, but they won't go to black law enforcement organizations to learn how to police their own people.
There's so much more that I want to cover with you. So I'm going to ask you if I can have a part 2 conversation with you.
Absolutely.
Because when you and I have had conversations in the past, particularly where related to my radio show, they lasted forever and a day.
Right.
And I really want to be able to have an opportunity for my audience to absorb a lot of the knowledge that you have, not just for the importance of mental health, physical health, and romantic relationship health,
right,
but the wealth of information that you have from an insider's perspective, which is how we met.
We met arguing.
We were arguing over police issues on Facebook, and I said, well, if you feel that way, brother, come on my radio show and let's talk about it. You showed up.
Exactly.
And we've been buddies ever since.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So I'd like for you to come back to Sessions Café.
Man. Absolutely.
And soon. And because I want to really build on the knowledge that you have, and also all the great things that you're doing in Westchester County.
Yeah.
I think we have so much to talk about and cover. And so
yeah, we have to, brother. We
yeah.
got to talk about these protest profiteers out here that are leading our people astray when it comes to issues of police and community relationship.
We got a lot to cover.
Yes.
So, Damon, you're going to come back to the show?
Always, brother.
And we're going to talk more. And I mean soon.
Yeah, let's make it happen, man.
We'll be back here on Sessions Café in a minute.